This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. At this point, I think I'm considering changing the name of this channel from my name or Dollemore Daily to Seeking Consequence. I've been talking about consequence for Donald Trump long ago, into the early days of his presidency, when it was clear he was not going to run the government as someone dedicated to the prospect of governance, but of self-dealing and the politics of personal grievance. And the January 6th insurrection, the attempted overthrow of the United States government, the attempted overturning of a free and fair election, places the United States in greater danger than it ever have been. And right now, the January 6th Select Committee has issued 4 subpoenas for Mark Meadows, former Trump golf caddy Dan Scavino, Kash Patel, a Pentagon official, and Steve Bannon. I've talked about inherent contempt and civil and criminal contempt and all the ways, all the avenues that the Congress can take to ensure that their compelling of testimony happens. It seems like some of those who have been subpoenaed, Dan Scavino can't be found. No one knows where he is. He hasn't been served with his subpoenas, last I knew. But Mark Meadows and Kash Patel have been in communication with the committee, so they're not outright denying the subpoena, defying the subpoena. Steve Bannon, on the other hand, it seems is. I'm going to read a little bit from this New York Times article, and I really want to impress upon everybody that they need to contact their congressperson, especially if they're on that committee, that we need to hold Steve Bannon accountable if indeed he is going to defy a legally issued subpoena for reasons that are nonsense. And I'm going to get into those reasons. Reading from this New York Times article, January 6th panel threatens to pursue charges against Bannon. Now, threats are one thing. It makes me feel good to hear that there possibly will be consequences for Steve Bannon for defying a subpoena. But threats are just that. They are not action. Until those threats materialize into action and consequence, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Reading from this article, the Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riot threatened on Friday to pursue criminal charges against Steve Bannon, the former chief strategist to President Donald Trump, for refusing to comply with its subpoena, announcing it would consider initiating contempt of Congress proceedings. In a statement after Mr. Bannon informed the panel that he would not cooperate in the inquiry, the panel's leader said they would swiftly consider, quote unquote, a lot of considering, a lot of threatening, swiftly consider. What are they doing? Swiftly consider. You subpoena him. You name the day he's commanded to comply, to be there. And when he doesn't show up, you initiate contempt proceedings. You don't swiftly consider. The future of our nation, the very existence of our country, hangs in the balance while you swiftly consider. The panel's leaders said they would swiftly consider a criminal contempt referral, raising the prospect of what could be a prolonged legal battle over what could be crucial evidence in the investigation. The committee has ordered 4 former Trump administration officials, Mr. Bannon, Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, Dan Scavino Jr., a Deputy Chief of Staff and former Donald Trump golf caddy, and Kash Patel, a Pentagon Chief of Staff, to sit for depositions and furnish documents and other materials relevant to this investigation. Mr. Meadows and Mr. Patel have had some communication with the committee, according to the joint statement issued on Friday by Representatives Benny Thompson, Democrat of Mississippi, and the committee's chairman, and Liz Cheney, Republican of Wyoming, and the vice chairwoman. Mr. Scavino had not been served a subpoena until Friday, Politico reported. Oh, so Dan Scavino was indeed finally found. He was laminate, as they say, and unable to be found. But apparently on Friday, they got a hold of him. In a letter to the panel on Thursday, Robert Costello, Mr. Bannon's lawyer, informed the committee that his client would not comply. Mr. Costello said Mr. Bannon was abiding by Mr. Trump's directive for his former aides and advisors facing subpoenas to invoke immunity and refrain from turning over documents that might be protected under executive privilege. It is therefore clear to us that since the executive privileges belong to President Trump and he has, through his counsel, announced his intention to assert those executive privileges enumerated above, we must accept his direction and honor his invocation of executive privilege, Mr. Costello wrote. In their statement, the leaders of the Select Committee rejected Mr. Bannon's rationale for stonewalling the investigation. Now, listen, I've said it before many times that Donald Trump does not enjoy executive privilege. The only way that executive privilege can be invoked, asserted, is through the Biden administration, because he is the current sitting president of the United States. Donald Trump doesn't have the ability or authority to say, executive privilege, because he is not the president of the United States. And there are multiple reasons why Steve Bannon wouldn't fall under it, even if he did. Even if dumb Donald Trump could say, executive privilege, it wouldn't apply to Steve Bannon. While Mr. Meadows and Mr. Patel are so far engaging with the Select Committee, Mr. Bannon has indicated that he will try to hide behind vague references to privileges of the former president, they said in their joint statement. The Select Committee fully expects all of these witnesses to comply with our demands for both documents and deposition testimony. We will not allow any witness to defy a lawful subpoena or attempt to run out the clock, they added. And then here we go. Here's the explanation that I'm talking about relative to executive privilege, even if it were a thing. While Mr. Bannon worked at the White House in 2017, he departed in August of that year and was not an executive branch employee in the lead up to or on January 6th. It is not clear how executive privilege, which can shield White House deliberations or documents involving the president from disclosure, would apply to any interaction he may have had with Mr. Trump related to the riot, which occurred more than 3 years after he left the administration. That's what we're looking at here. This is obfuscation. This is shift. All this is a time grab, trying to delay the outcome and stymie their efforts, because they're not looking for justice. They're not looking to see, they meaning the people who are involved. They don't want the truth to be known, from Donald Trump all the way down to your lowest flak jacket wearing moron who stormed the Capitol. They don't want the truth known. And the organizers of it, and allegedly, likely, possibly, will cover myself, Steve Bannon is one of the leaders. Quote, Steve Bannon was not in the executive branch and was not working for the president, said Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland and a member of the committee. Even if you make the assumption that Donald Trump has even a shred of executive privilege, how could that extend to Steve Bannon? It does not. Hold him accountable. Don't swiftly consider, do it. The Biden administration said on Friday that it would not extend executive privilege, which usually applies to a sitting president, to the former president for the first batch of documents requested by the committee. That means that the panel would have access to a wide range of documents it requested from the National Archives. Quote, as part of this process, the president has determined that an assertion of executive privilege is not warranted for the first set of documents from the Trump White House, Jen Psaki, the White House spokeswoman, said on Friday. And that's where we are with this. Listen, I generally think the committee's going to do the right thing, but I believe it is my job to put pressure on them. I guess my job would be to put pressure on you also, to put pressure on them, to call your representative, to call Benny Thompson's office, to call Jamie Raskin's office, to call Liz Cheney's office. Enough with this idea that if we all just link arms together and sing Kumbaya or some folk song, that everything's going to be better. It is going to take action. It is going to take an aggressive tack with these people for them to comply. The threat of prison will do wonders to Steve Bannon, the smooth-skinned Steve Bannon. They'll act like badasses until a jail cell is awaiting them. That needs to be remembered. Donald Trump cannot keep them from prison anymore with his bogus, absolute, disgusting pardons. He doesn't have that power. Just as he doesn't have pardon power, he doesn't have executive privilege. And the committee must, for the sake of the future of our country, this isn't just politics. This is an existential crisis that we're facing. What do you think, though? I'd love to know. Am I being too harsh on Democrats in Congress? You can leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. I'd love to hear from you. You can also connect with me on social media. That's a great way to connect. And if I bring you some value, just a little, if I bring you $1.99's worth of value every month, I would appreciate it if you would consider supporting my work. You can click the join button below this video. And again, for as little as $2 a month, you can become a channel member, or you can head on over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt There, you can also help support my work. That doesn't just cover the podcast. That's everywhere that I'm creating content. Anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time. Until I do, be genuine. Take care of one another.